Hello and welcome to Quick Writing Tips with Kate McMurray. That's me. This is a quick tip bonus video. Today we're going to talk about National Novel Writing Month tips. So you've decided to write a novel in a month. That's awesome. No, really. Participating in NaNoWriMo was one of the things that led me to taking my writing more seriously and to seeking publication. I was a NaNoWriMo municipal liaison in New York City for 11 years also, so hopefully I know of which I speak. So let's get into it. Is it really possible to write a draft in a month? Spoiler, yes. Kinda. First, let's talk about some ways to approach a quick draft, which is essentially what you're doing in November. Spend the previous month planning. So that's when you do your research, all of your pre-writing, outlining, planning, plotting activities. And my general approach to writing a draft quickly is that if you know where you're going, you'll get there faster. And by that I mean, if you know what you're going to write when you sit down to write it, you'll be able to get into it and start writing rather than spending a lot of time staring at the blinking cursor. I'm definitely more of a planner than anything else when it comes to writing, so I do tend to have outlines and plans and plots and diagrams and all that before I sit down to write, but your mileage may vary with that. But I do recommend having some kind of idea of what your story is before you sit down to write it. Pace yourself. 50,000 words in 30 days is about 1,667 words per day. So you can try to just aim for 1,667 words each day, or you can write more when you have time to get ahead. So if you have a 9 to 5 and you have weekends wide open, maybe you spend your weekends doing more writing to get ahead and then only write what you can on weekdays. If you have a slow afternoon, maybe you get some extra writing in then. You'll find that part of this process is that you'll have days when writing is easy, where you can sit down and it all just pours right out of you and you'll write 2,000, 3,000 words without even breaking a sweat. And you'll have some days where even writing 100 words feels like pulling teeth. And that's totally normal. And one of the ways that you can help meet that deadline is if you get ahead, then if you have a bad day, it doesn't totally derail you. I also recommend trying word sprints. That means that you set a timer for 10 to 15 minutes and write as many words as you can in that time. I have found that sprints that are longer than about 20 minutes are too much of a slog and they're really too hard to be effective. But anecdotally, I know from the NaNoWriMo community in New York City that most people in a 10-minute sprint can write about 300 words, and in a 15-minute sprint can write 500 to 700 words, meaning that if you do a few sprints, you can get your words for the day done in a very short amount of time, probably less than an hour. Next, to write in or not to write in. I'm recording this video in October of 2020, and there will be no write-ins this year on account of the coronavirus pandemic. But under normal circumstances, I would say, yes, do it. And I say that because anecdotally, we know that writers who participate in public events or virtual events in the case of 2020 are more likely to finish on time. And this is because your fellow participants are like the greatest support group in the world. Because here are a whole bunch of people who are also participating in trying this crazy thing of writing a whole novel in a month. And they will be your cheerleaders. They will be people to bounce ideas off of. They will peer pressure you. Whatever it is that you need, they are there for you to help you get your novel written in a month. But do what you're comfortable with, because some writers really don't like writing outside of their designated writing spaces. They don't really feel comfortable going to meet a cafe full of strangers. 2020 actually may be a really great opportunity to sort of get your feet wet in write-ins because you can do it without leaving the safety of your apartment. But, do what you're comfortable with. I would say I recommend trying to go to a write-in at least once, but if that's not your jam, that's totally. Now, what should you do after November 30th? The most important thing that I really want to impart to you is that your November draft is just that. It's a draft. Do not submit it to publishers right away unless they explicitly ask for you to. Some publishers put out calls every December for NaNoWriMo drafts, in which case it's valid to submit to them, but otherwise I would say no. And the reason is that publishing professionals get bombarded with unfinished first drafts every December and they hate it. A draft is not the thing to submit to a publisher. What you want to be submitting is the most polished, beautiful, revised, best book that you can write. So my recommendation is to sit on your draft instead. Take December to see your family, celebrate your preferred winter holiday, and then come back in January and reread your book with fresh eyes so that you can revise it. Many books started as NaNoWriMo drafts, so it's 100% possible to take what you wrote in November and turn it into something really spectacular. So don't feel discouraged. Just don't think of your NaNoWriMo novel as a finished book. I also recommend using the opportunity to explore your process and test what works. So maybe this is the year that you try something completely different. Maybe you write an outline in a way that you never had before. Maybe you use a new software program. Maybe you write in a genre that's completely new to you. The cool thing about NaNoWriMo is that it's only a month. So if you try something and it doesn't work for you, that's fine. You can scrap it and move on. But if it does work, then you've got a new tool for your arsenal. The NaNoWriMo approach does not work for every writer. I personally think it's worth it to try once, but if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that it's not your process. And remember to have fun. NaNoWriMo is zany and fast, but the most important objective is to have fun with it. As long as you write something, that's more words than you had on November 1st. Don't beat yourself up if you don't make it to 50K. And try not to compare yourself to others. You should follow your own path. Because if you do meet other writers in your region, you will find that there is always someone who can write 100,000 words in a month without trying very hard. And you'll also find that there are some writers who really struggle to even get to 10K and everything in between. And whatever way that you approach it is correct. There's no right or wrong way to do any of this. So follow your own path. And that's the end of this video. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel because I will have many new writing tip videos coming very soon. And check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Kate McMurray, where I will have in the near future additional resources for writers and ways to participate to determine what I cover in future videos.